Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast, aka the Pup List. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast, bringing you topical and relevant news along with our most humble, subjective opinions. This is episode 356. We're recording this live on Wednesday, April 29th, 2026. The 2026 NFL draft was held last weekend. We'll give a recap of the Packers draft class and give you our take on the guys they picked. I'm your host, Tay. Joining me, as always, is our one and only
Ren. What the hell is up, Tay?
Not much. It's, a few days after Christmas, Ren, Packers Christmas, where we get some gifts. Not as many this year. Obviously, more. We'll find out if it's more quantity or quality than quantity. With only 6 picks by the Pack this weekend, we'll go through who they are and what you felt about the whole process. I know I was with you a little bit over the weekend and we chatted about this, but it's time to do the podcast or the whatever live stream podcast here. Thanks for everyone for showing up. And I guess this is a good time, better than any, to tell everyone to go subscribe and follow. We're out there on all the social platforms. Of course, you can listen here live every Wednesday on Twitch, YouTube, and X. We appreciate everyone that joins up. Ren, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm all right, Tay. It's a beautiful day out there. Overcast, cool, rain. Rain? What's that in Wisconsin these days? Basically, we live in Seattle now, Tay. That's just the way it is. It's the rainy season, apparently. Eventually, we'll work our way out of that, as they do on the upper West Coast, but we are in it. The bird migration is on, and so are the draft picks migrating now to Green Bay for, rookie orientation here in just a short time, Tay.
This weekend.
How are we feeling after we got a little time to kind of decompress, sit with these only 6 here? I think it's the Packers' smallest draft class, and I forget how many years, over 20 years, Tay.
Yeah.
But I would say, based on this being a weaker draft class, certainly needs box checked.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you kind of go into this year thinking, man, there are some holes to fill. The Packers went with areas of need, which was nice. I'll bring this up here. We had 6 picks. Round 2 was Brandon Cisse. Round 3, Chris McClellan, D-line. Brandon was a cornerback. Round 4, edge, Dennis Sutton. Round 5, offensive lineman, guard, center. I think it's Jagger Burton now.
Correct. It is Jagger, as in Mick Jagger Burton. Yep.
Round 6 was another cornerback, Damani Jackson, and round 6 again was a kicker, Trey Smack. But we how do you evaluate kickers? How do you scout them?
Well, if we go with our good old friend of the podcast, Wendell Ferreira, you don't draft kickers, Tay.
No.
You just don't do it. Now, this is not, as other people said, a Rich Bisaccia, hey, pick my boy, Carlson's brother, Anders, and let's get him in here. They don't really have the kicker figured out because Mason Crosby had hit the road and was basically out of gas and juice. And he was a very low-rated kicker, yet they still took him based on Rich's desire to develop one Anders Carlson. So that's not the case with Mr. Trey Smack. He was the kicker. If you're going to draft one of the draft day, this is the guy to do it. I think the Packers really felt at the time, Tay, the way this draft was, they had a lot of guys earmarked. They ended up grabbing, I believe, 5 of the top undrafted free agents in the class. And they just said, we're going to focus on that. We don't need the picks. We'll just kind of take a flyer here. honestly, Tay, we're working our way from back to front. I don't care how you do it, but I will say, I think based on how quizzical the kicking game was, obviously some issues in Chicago against the Bears. We know that. Kick here might have won that game today, even though they had no business losing the game for about 10,000 other reasons in that playoff game. That said, the way the whole thing, I talked to you off mic about this, went down throughout the year with Brandon McManus. Is he hurt? Is he not? He can play. He doesn't want to play. LaFleur saying X. He's saying Y. It was kind of weird. I don't know if you caught that. I felt weird about it, mid-late season with McManus, what we were hearing from the Packers and what we're hearing from McManus. I personally, Tay, think they don't like the guy a whole lot. They signed him to the contract, and I think they have a little bit of buyer's remorse. And I think they're like, you know what, Brandon? We're bringing this guy in. We're going to push you, and probably out the door starting right away in the 2026 season, Tay. There's a very good chance Trace Mack will be your starting kicker out the gate. I do believe that. You don't do something like this. Again, I think there's a lot of tea leaves to read here with McManus, and I think they're ready to move on.
Well, I think you might be right. I think Brian Gutekunst was asked in his after the draft presser whether keeping Trace Mack on the roster is because he drafted him, and he said, no. It's fair competition and all blah blah blah. He did all the right political speech there, but yeah, I think looking back, you make a good point, and that all that like injury talk, like, are you injured? No, I'm not injured, and yeah, but he's injured. Matt LaFleur says to McManus that was there was a little bit more there than we knew, and yeah, I think this. You don't draft kickers. We've always said that. We've always still think that. So why did they? Maybe they just said, we're doing this. We're taking who we think is the best kicker in the draft class. We're going to make a statement, maybe underline our issues at special teams and the kicking and, show everybody that we're doing something about this and put a little pressure on McManus. I don't think there's too much pressure on Haversick, but it's kind of, I guess he's the odd man out, right? Because they're not going to just all of a sudden pick Haversick over Trace Mack or Brendan McManus after Brendan McManus gets a new contract and Trace Mack's on the new rookie deal. So that's unlikely to happen. So yeah, this was weird. So I'm glad we started out with the kicker situation in this draft, Ren, because that's where people point to like, what the heck? Like, why would you do that? It was like the most controversial pick, I think, by the Packers. They traded up. They took both 7th round picks, turned it into a 6th round pick at 216 and drafted Trace Mack. I guess I still have beef with that personally. I wouldn't have done that, right? Like our argument is that like, is Trey there after the draft is over and you can just pick him up? You can sign him undrafted free agent style. I would think so. I mean, I'm not a draft expert. I'm not, I'm not in the trenches. I don't know, but that's what I would guess. That's what I would think. So why waste 2 7th round picks when maybe you can take a flyer out on 2 offensive linemen, maybe, a running back, like a tight end, like just take a flyer on these guys. Rather you move up to the 6th round to draft a kicker. It still doesn't make sense. It seems like a dream. And I guess there's not really a bad way to say, this was terrible, because in their mind, in Brian's mind, it wasn't. I don't know. So yeah, there needs to be more super analysis here to like say like, okay, this was the right move, because in the end, I'm still scratching my head a little bit, and I would have made a different decision. Wouldn't you?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't do this for a living, Tay, but obviously they had strong convictions about it, and like that's why I brought it up to you off the mic this weekend, and now again with regard to, the tea leaves and what went on behind the scenes with Brandon McManus. Again, I don't think they like him. The extracurriculars of what that situation is with his personality on the football team. I just get that feeling based on all those things. And I think it only takes one in the 7th round to say, this is a really weak draft class. Hey, where can we get some value? Kicker. So they said, you know what? We could spend our 2 7th-round guys on, Kyron Drones, the quarterback we're going to bring in as undrafted free agent, but we know we're probably going to get him. We already had him in it for a top 30 visit. He's already impressed. I believe Josh Geske out of Illinois, one of the best undrafted free agents, guard. Brett Bielema, as others have mentioned, really talked him up. So you get some nice, competition with regard to the, very end depth offensive lineman, 10-12 kind of guy. And they just felt like, hey, this is the best value we can get at the time in a place where we've got issues. And you know what? Brandon McManus is 34 years old. This kid's young. Let's get him in. Let's get him going. And again, unlike other guys, the J.K. Scotts of the world, that's a bad memory of drafting a kicker / a punter. And again, the aforementioned Anders Carlson. This is a guy that can kick. He can kick them long, Tay. He can kick them all over the place. He can kick it in the end zone. Can he do it? They don't do it in college, Tay. Kicking into the landing zone, that remains to be seen with the way the whole new kicking setup is in the NFL. That'll be, obviously, our new special teams coordinator. That'll be his thing to teach up. But he's got a ball of clay here to mold and, make him as good of a – listen, again, I think this guy's going to win the job, Tay. And if he does, he could be the Packers kicker for over a decade. And could they go through a few spots? No different than they have, honestly, with McManus, missing some massive kicks throughout the course of the season and playoffs. Could you go through that a little bit? Sure. But, Mason Crosby went through that too, Tay. And ultimately ended up being your wife's favorite Packer. So maybe she's going to, break out that smack jersey sooner than later, Tay.
Well, I mean, there is a good chance this guy is on the roster. He makes the team as the starting kicker this year and goes on for a long career in Green Bay. But look at his stats, all of his collegiate career, 53 of 64, that's 82%, 82.8, almost 83. Field goals made. He makes a bunch over 50, so that's great. Extra points, 100 out of 101, 99%. That's pretty good. So if you're talking about comparing, McManus or any of the other kickers we've had, like he's maybe even better, right? Just as good, right? So looking at our special teams and our kicking situation over the past several years and how detriment they were to winning games and going to the playoffs or continuing in the playoffs, why not? So I get all that, but I think you hopped around the question. Would you have taken, would you have done that in round 6, right? Trade both 7s for 6. I said I wouldn't. I like the situation we have here with the kicker. However, there's still like this draft kind of like analysis where like, why would you do that as a GM? So I don't know. Do you have any last comments? Would you have done?
Well, some people don't like he's from the South, easier to kick where it's warm. True, facts. But as they talk about, a lot of the kicker talent is going to go to a Southern school because of just that. As the weather turns, your numbers go down and it hurts your stock. He is from Maryland, after all, so he's not exactly from the South. There aren't a lot of Mason Crosbys, kicking in a cold weather place and end up, ultimately being – I don't know if he was drafted at the time, Tay, or not. I want to say he was by the Packers, not an undrafted guy. So, but again, I think this kid, given all things, given where, McManus is at in his career and the weird intangibles with that guy, again, I think if this guy has a above average to great camp, lock him in, write him in. He's your Packers 2026 kicker.
Let's go back to the list, Ren. Let's go back to the top. So Friday night, pick number 2 at 52, Brandon Cisse. He was kind of one of the guys I said they should take if he was there, and he was there, and he kind of dropped back a little bit. The Packers stuck at 52 and took him. I think they got good value there. Reading about this kid, I think it's going to be a nice addition and competition right away for the cornerback room. So the CBs got a boost here, and I like it. Yeah, I think this kid's got a lot of talent. He's very young, and I don't see any like negatives here really. Besides, I just hope he. I mean, I think he might start this year, maybe a little bit, but he's basically probably slotted in at what, like between 2 and 3 on the depth chart after St. Just and Nixon. Would you say?
I'd say he's definitely 3, Tay, at best at the moment. We'll see how camp goes for him. The great thing is, yeah, I mean, they hit a need right out the gate. Viewed as basically one of the last consensus, late first, early second round guys that was still on the board at 52. I mean, the Packers kind of couldn't believe it, so they had to run the card up. It was just one of those things. This draft in particular, the 2026 draft, really, for a lot of prospects, really got muddy between somewhere pick 40 and then pick 160. It was just kind of a lot of, pick your poison, who likes what, what do you value? And any of those guys could have kind of went anywhere in that realm of players. And then really after the 4th round or mid 4th round, it just fell into, could be an undrafted free agent, could be a drafted guy, just a really weak draft class. So going back to Cisse here, obviously going to be, I want to say 21, not till July, Tay, so still only 20 years old. Young, moldable kid, just loves football, the game of football. And the Packers, and when people were talking about this over the weekend, Goody talking about it, they love themselves athletes, and they love guys who love football, because Green Bay is not you can go do X, Y, or Z in this town. If you're some of these guys, yeah, you can go throw a fishing pole into the Fox River. Some guys like doing that in their spare time, but Green Bay, Wisconsin is all about football, and Goody values football players. And this kid eats it, breathes it, loves studying tape, wants to get better, and he's in the perfect spot to do just that in Green Bay. Not going to be forced into play week 1. He might play week 1. You never know, Tay, but that isn't something he's going to have to do here. Obviously, you mentioned it on our profile piece last week. We each had to pick a position that we felt was the most important with their first pick in the draft at pick 52. You pick cornerback, and he fits all those things that you want with that developmental piece, but doesn't have to get pushed into it right away. So decent size. He's not the tall guy you want. He was shortest of all your guys on your board. Excellent speed. That 4.4 140. Just jumps off the tape athletically. Will continue to work, and I think a year of seasoning, as we know. When you mentioned it too, these guys outside of St. Just, nobody was on the roster. Goody said it. They had to add numbers. They did that with St. Just, and also obviously Damani Jackson we'll get to here in a little bit. But going back to your recap when you were looking at these guys, what, Tay, for you, when they did run up that card going, man, this guy's still there, and a first round talent, what made you excited about the pick?
Yeah, just that it was a position of need. I wanted them to take a cornerback, and they pulled the trigger on this guy that kind of slipped and fell. I agree with you. I think he fits with everything we need here. He's a little shorter, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. It's just like that's not what I would pick. My tendencies, I like tall corners, really good speed. He's got a great RAS score. He's young, and you're talking at least, if this guy's good, you get at least another contract out of him, and maybe he's one of those rare Packers third contract kind of guys. Keep him for decades, but I don't know. We'll see. He has some family ties. His girlfriend's from Wisconsin. They love the Packers, so he knows the Packers. he kind of got a little emotional when he was drafted. He'd love to see that. And he's going to wear number 2, Ren. He's my new number 2. Like, I don't know.
That's a lot to live up with that number recently today.
And then Malik Willis had it. Now Brandon Cisse. Oh,
time for a Tay 2 jersey, Tay.
That's right. I should just have just 2 with, blank spot above it that can fill, and all my favorite guys in there. But I love this pick. I guess I was a little hard on it early, saying he was maybe a project. He was a little raw, unpolished, but aren't most guys when they're young. It's hard to plug and play rookie people, especially at positions like corner. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to enjoy this, and I love the pick at number round 2, our first pick in the draft, Brandon Cisse at cornerback. Love it.
Yeah, and he's a willing tackler too, Tay. So that's what you want to hear as well. You hope, shoulder injury doesn't happen a few years in and suddenly, he doesn't want to tackle, i.e. Jair Alexander, not to give everybody a little bit of, post-traumatic stress with that point there.
Then we moved into round 3. We moved up to grab defensive lineman Chris McClellan. This was, I don't know. This guy wasn't really on your anybody's consensus boards, whatever that's worth, right? So a lot of people were looking down the list and saying, who is this guy? After reading a little bit more about him, the dude's got a pretty tight, heavy muscular body. He's got, like Ren said, he's got huge hands, 11 inches for his hands. So this was a position of need. This wasn't the one you talked about. Well, we needed a D tackle. Can this guy be the anchor in the middle? We hope so. 3'13", 6'4". He's 22 years old. He can bench. During the drills, he did 25 bench presses. It's pretty good. And 8.04 RAS score. It's probably, I think, is that the lowest of this class? I think it might be.
It's right. And 8.04, is that the lowest? Again, as many people pointed out over the years, and we started talking about it years ago as well, the Packers and those relative athletic scores, if I can spit that out today, they love athletes, and still a extreme athlete at a very unathletic position, as we know. So Chris McClellan, I think we're both surprised kind of going into our first take, hearing a lot about a guy that gets lost in the block at times. But the more you heard about him and you're able to kind of juxtapose, the Packers framework of why they would maybe go Chris McClellan over Dominique Orange, who was Packer fans, Packer podcasts, Packer speak consensus. We'd rather have the true nose, the 0-1 technique guy. We can just plop down a giant man in the middle, and he can eat up some of that and stop the run. We need that. Well, Goody says, like he says with everything, versatility today. Yeah. We want a guy that, yes, is great at that, but this guy also a little bit of speed to power. Again, we talked about those massive hands, massive arms, 6 sacks in 2025 take. He can do both. And that's why Goody liked it. And he spoke to that. He's gotten better every year he's been in college. That versatility to play O technique, 0 technique, 1 technique, or even out there 3 technique, or even as a defensive end is, what made Brian fall in love and trade up today. They looked at, and then when you look at the picks, just a few picks later, Dominique Orange does go to the Minnesota Vikings. I think the other guy that was really worth a 3rd-round pick went maybe 3-4 picks after that, and that's it. So they had a chance, and they clearly earmarked Chris McClellan because they saw, hey, he's got a little Kenny Clark to him. He can pass rush a little bit. He can stop the run. We love versatility. We love the just massive athletic profile and strength of this guy, and he can do it for us. Again, we lose that 3 technique that we just brought in from the Vikings. We can shift them there, and maybe Nazir is now at the 1 or 0 technique in the middle, and we can throw him outside and have him rush. We can. He's a chess piece. He's only going to get better. Again, they see that upside, and the more I heard about it too, the more I agree. Hey, makes sense. They want that productivity. They want that ability, to keep that team guessing. That center maybe getting a little scared because this guy might push him back right into the quarterback.
They moved up to get him, which tells you a little bit about what Goody's thought process was about it. And you can see him out there, which is weird. 55 will be his number. He'll be in the middle. That's, we had Zadarius Smith, and then we had Enigbare. I think, was it, man, I'm losing it. I had it a minute ago, but a guy from like the 90s, 55. I'll think of it later and I'll bring it back up, but he'll be the new 55.
Oh, 55, was that Wayne Simmons? No, I don't think Wayne was mean though, man. I love myself some Wayne Simmons, but no, I don't think it was Wayne.
I'll remember, and then I'll bring it back in. But 55, that's your new 55 in the middle. All right, Ryan, let's move on to Saturday. We had
Tim Watley, Tay. Are you an anti-dentite?
Oh,
DDS, Tim Watley, yeah, Tay.
Well, you got your guy. He fell to round 4, pick 120, and I guess from Goody's presser, paraphrasing here, but he's kind of was like, well, he was there. I was thinking about trying to draft or trying to trade up back into round 3 to get him, but he kept falling and falling and falling. So great pick here. This is one of the guys you highlighted going into the draft as wanting a DE. We finally got an edge rusher in the draft with our 3rd pick in the draft. I love it. He's big. He's tall.
Tall. I mean, you got him kind of on the shorter end there. A lot of people post him as 6'6", Tay.
Yeah, it's nuts. Great RAS score. Young guy. Pretty quick for that size. But you got anything more to say about your DDS, Ren? You're the guy that you love?
Well, I talked about 3 guys, obviously, in Gabe Acas and DDS here, Malachi Lawrence. What I love most about all 3 of those guys is that 10-yard split, that ability to explode off the line with that speed to power. What some people don't like and are confused why it's confusing, Tay, that he fell to 120. I mean, it's crazy. The athletic measurables of Deni are off the charts. Normally, a guy with these kind of athletic measurables that can rush the passer is a first-round pick in almost every draft. And I know the Packers clearly, like Goody said, they ran that pick up there, Tay. They were like, are you effing kidding me? We didn't have to do anything, and he's there. He's in our lap. My God, let's go. I mean, 6'6", 256, 9.96 RAS. Goody just hears that RAS and is like, that's good enough for me. But here's a guy, Tay. Since 2015, guys with pass rush win rates over 17%, run stop under 7.5%, win in true pass rush sets over 27.5% of the time with a RAS of 9.4 or higher are Myles Garrett, DDS, the aforementioned, Malachi Lawrence, Trey Hendrickson, and Latu. That's it, Tay. Generally, these are extreme athletes that turn out to produce at a decent to above average level every time. It's other comps. Danielle Hunter, we know he was in Minnesota for a while, then with the Texans. Obviously, got even better down in Houston with that defense. Preston Smith comp, just that tall, athletic, strong body. 147 pressures in his time in college, 25 sacks. Again, the athletic measurables, I heard everybody else talk about it too, from Andy Herman, everybody in between. The guy has no red flags, so there's no injuries, no off-the-field stuff. Um, he's like the true package, and how they got him at 120 will leave us all wondering. And you get to pair him with our guy, Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Micah loves himself, his alma mater, Penn State. We saw Micah in the offseason, obviously working with edge, working with our 4th-round pick last year, our other edge rusher who is the, day 3 Packer draft kind of feels at a loss for words, picking Sorrell, finding his name in my brain. But, he's going to work with this kid today, and it's just going to be fun. And the fact that they got that value, you can even set the edge against the run. Just got to develop that pass rush program a little bit. But again, he gets to develop a pass rush program with Micah Parsons, who's going to love the kid and take him under his wing. You love that all day on Sunday, every day of the week. Just be over the moon about the pick. After that pick happened today, I was like, well, whatever else we do with the 2026 NFL draft, we hit 3 positions of need. One guy I loved. Let's go. I can't feel bad about it at all from there forward.
Yeah, I'm getting excited about this. I think he's going to be pair well on the other side of Micah Parsons. Whether he will play this year, I would bet he does. I bet that they sprinkle him in. Does he, take over, Sorrell and Oliver on the outside? I can't say that. It's possible, but we'll see. Watch for him, number 51 in training camp. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This looks awesome. Again, a position of need. We've taken 3 now, right in a row, picks that we need, and you got to love that. Let's move on. We got.
You skipping over Moose?
I didn't. I just hit the wrong button.
All right.
Jagger Burton, in round 5, pick 153, the center guard. This dude is huge. He's out of Kentucky, 6'4", 312. He's 23 years old. He benched 28 in the drills. RAS score of 9.88. Huge again. And to top it all off, he will wear number 52, which I know all you will remember Rashawn Gary wearing it, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember Frank Winters back in the day wore number 52. And
the old bag of donuts, Tay. I believe you are correct. Frankie wore 52.
So yeah, you got anything to say about this Jaggermeister?
You know who he is, Tay? He's versatile, can play interior any side, either guard, center. You got a little backup for obviously Sean Ryan. Personally, I think Jacob Monk sucks, Tay. If he makes the football team, I'll be surprised. So happy to see a guy who can play on the interior and at center. Because, hey, Sean Ryan goes down. You need a guy who can do it. 0 sacks allowed in his 2025 season at center, Tay. So he can pass protect. Now, can he do it the next level? We'll see. But this is a guy really to help build out that depth kind of when you look at, 7 through 9. I think he's going to slot in there pretty quickly if he has even an average to slightly above average camp. I don't like some of the back end guys that they have in their offensive line depth room that have been there a little too long now, like Monk, like Glover. I think those guys can ultimately hit the road this year if they get it all figured out. Even a guy like Geske, an undrafted free agent, I think will push some of those, fringe outside guys that have been in the program quite some time and just really not, in my opinion, worked out. And I'd like to go with the younger, better upside guys in both those situations. Director of college scouting, Matt Malaspina for the Packers. Guy always does his job, quote unquote, Tay. Never thought he'd be there when they took him. So for Matt, he's like, hey, and all those guys get a little bit of say. Here's a guy, he's like, listen, this kid's here. He's good. Let's run the card up. This is exactly what we're looking for offensive line depth.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, you bolster that depth piece. You have a serious contender for a backup or even eventually the starting center. Um, Again, this is the fourth pick now in the draft that you've made, and it's a position of need. We always need offensive linemen. So again, we hit the mark here. I'm looking at this pick as super positive, and yeah, you really can't go wrong with this. Um, Jagger, I think it will work out, and I don't know if he'll start this year. That's not necessary, but to draft and develop him to be one of the top five, I think that's the goal here, and I think he will.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays. Again, these are guys. Most of these guys we've already talked about. We're going to see a lot in camp. We're going to see a lot in the preseason games, and it's going to be fun to watch them. But again, all very high-end athletes that I think, obviously, versatility, Packers thing, but in a draft that was so few guys, again, at positions of need, I think they really hit it out of the ballpark. And we'll talk about one more guy. We already talked about Mr. Smack up front, Tay. Why wouldn't we talk some kicker up front? But finally, we'll get to adding numbers to the room. Damani Jackson, cornerback. If there is a, turnout, churn out NFL player university, it is certainly the University of Alabama.
Yeah, round 6, he was picked 201. He's 6 foot, 194. He ran a 4.41 in the 40. He's 23 years old. A decent RAS score again, 9.02, so just over 9. And I love this as another cornerback. I think I predicted 2 or 3 being picked. This was the second and last one being picked in the draft. So I think that is great based on our opinions of the cornerback room now. I think this puts some really good pieces in there for competition to push some of these guys that we have, and to maybe let them go if they're not working out. And next year you draft maybe 2 more, and you keep reloading that. So this is a part of that puzzle. I don't really know a whole lot about Damani Jackson. I just know that he'll be wearing number 20, which was Javon Bullard's number. I think Bullard has changed it to, I want to say 5 or something, or not 5. That was like he changed. Bullard's changed his number. I'll get back to you on that, but yeah, you can see him out there as 20. So don't be confused. It's not Javon Bullard. It is Damani Jackson.
Well, sorry to hear about that. I think Bull should have kept 20, man. I mean,
Yeah,
we're really enjoying Bullard and, getting used to that. So anybody who bought a Bullard jersey, he owes you some money. That said, I got him at 6'1", Tay. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school in the state of California. Played his first 2 seasons at USC. His best year was in 2024 in college. At the time, after his 2024 season going into this year, he was projected to be a late first, early second round pick. Obviously, the Packers give him the 6th round, so some great value there. That year, when guys are throwing at him in 54% completion rate, he's super fast. You got him up there with a 4.4 140. I want to say at one point in his time as a high school athlete, he was maybe the fastest man in California at the 100-yard dash. So again, the speed is just incredible. Does get lost in some of that stuff, moving with receivers. So, but the nice thing is, again, this is a developmental guy. He was benched a little bit this past season, kind of late season, and then came back to play some of those latter games and played better. To play those last 3 to 5 games out with the Crimson Tide in Alabama. So he's got a lot to prove. Again, another willing tackler here, Tay. So we got 2 cornerbacks with high-end speed. This guy's a little bit bigger. He knows he hasn't totally lived up to his billing as of yet, being as talented as he is, but he's not going to likely be pressed into anything in 2026 with the Packers. So you get 2 young guys along with St. Juste, and then the upcoming 2027 draft. So the cornerback room can suddenly, within a couple of years here, look a lot better for the Green Bay Packers. Obviously with some youth and some older guys leaving. None of us, I would think you and I would both agree we don't see Keyshawn Nixon after the 2026 season back with the Green Bay Packers. CV is kind of one of those fringe guys, as it were. We know he's not a willing tackler, Tay, when it comes to CV. And, hey, where they got him, what he's been, I believe, is a 7th-round pick. Great value for Valentine at this point. But you have to feel better based on the talent of both the cornerbacks they got, one really early, one really late. But I think it starts to remake the room with a couple guys that are ready to prove themselves for different reasons.
Quick question. We went into this draft. We both picked a position of need, of priority. I picked this cornerback room. You picked defensive edge. So now after you see what happened here, the results of the draft, what we actually did, do you change your mind? Are you okay with this, or would you rather have them take a edge first?
I mean, ultimately, as long as it was Malachi Lawrence, Gabe Akas, or the dentist, DDS, I'm good, Tay. So no, I'm happy, that it worked out the way it did for them. I think they're really fortunate to have gotten a talent like Deny where they did. I have that PTSD, as I've talked about, with the cornerback position. Really hasn't worked out in Green Bay a whole hell of a lot. Do like that these guys are not pressed necessarily into service right away this year. Not that they won't. I think Cisse, you'll see him out there at some times in the 26 season, but they won't have the pressure to perform at a high level right away. And they'll get into, obviously, the system with the coaching. And we know, again, Cisse just loves to study film as it is. So it's going to be nothing but good things for, I think, future seasons after this one for both those guys in Green Bay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad all these guys here, maybe not Trey Smack, but all these guys have an opportunity to just develop and learn and blend in and meld into the whole system, and then be able to perform after that. So no stress required right out of the gate.
As far as playing time, Tay, goes, obviously not talking about Smack, who again I think will be the kicker when all is said and done, barring a miserable training camp from him. I would say McClellan, Deny, and a little bit of Cisse mixed in are the guys that are going to see playing time in 2026. Outside of that, you wouldn't likely see Burton. I don't think you'll see Jackson at all. But you're definitely going to see some Chris McClellan right away, Tay. He is going to play, again, of the top three. And listen, Deny is going to get some playing time. We know the first 4 weeks of the season at minimum, they're going to need guys situationally to go out there and play. So he's going to get a little trial by fire, and we're going to see what we got with this high-end athlete. And he's going to have to start learning, right away under fire.
All right, 2026 draft picks are locked in. Ren, what is personal grade of this draft?
Yeah, I hate the grades. I read probably a number of articles about teams who did the best for themselves.
What about you? What's your
in the draft? Again, you can't really give these things anything until you've got at least 2-3 years underway. That said, with only 6 guys coming in here, Tay, I would say I'll give the Packers a solid, B+ because they hit all those needs and they got a lot of guys. You see the versatility, those relative athletic scores that are so Packersy. I think each one of these, we talked about them today, and we've listened so much to other people talking about them over the last few days after the draft was complete. You really go, every one, you go, okay, makes sense. So right up front, I'd say the Packers did a pretty darn good bang-up job. I would give them a B+.
Okay. I originally came in at, initial reaction was C-. because I guess I didn't necessarily think down on the way or I'm sorry. I didn't think down on these players themselves. Like a lot of these guys are great players. I'm glad we have them. I think it was just like my grade was based on how Brian did it. Like I don't know if you needed to trade up for Chris McClellan. I don't know if you needed to trade up for Trey Smack, right? So those type of things made my grade go down. So I think after further review, I'm back up to a B minus here. I think all positions of need, and some of these guys look like studs in the future. You needed to draft and fill in some spots, and you need some people for the future. I think that was accomplished here in this draft.
Right on. Let me ask you this. So obviously there's no way McClellan would have been there, Tay, if they stuck where they were. The way those last interior defensive linemen that could truly make a difference right away in the interior went. So I think, again, they love the guy. You could see their conviction. Read some stuff on them today when they were watching his tape throughout the year. They just kept coming back to him. They're like, as they watched him more and more, they're like, ooh, ah. They kind of fell in love with the guy. And hey, go get your guy. You feel good about it. That's their conviction. We'll see if they're right. But go get the guy if you love him that much. You're coming back to him, and it's kind of like, it's like when you see something that really, checks your boxes, checks your fancy with, oh, I really love that hat, or I love that shirt, and you can't get out of your mind. You're like, I got to get that, and you get it, and you're like, yep, it's just, or my favorite pair of shoes, or whatever anybody's into. They were into Chris McClellan, and you got to just back them on it and take it. And again, with the kicker, it takes one Tay after that. I don't think they valued those 7th round picks this year. I don't, Goody went into this draft, and one of the things we talked about last week was he felt their numbers were already kind of high. Yeah. So I think he comes out going, I didn't need the numbers anyway. I wanted to hit and get good picks at these positions and build out my roster. And then in 27, I'm really going to spend some capital and have a lot of it and money too in free agency. So I feel my roster is strong enough, and I feel the guys I'm pinpointing in the undrafted free agent class, again, I've said it earlier tonight, I think he had a strategy and a strong feeling about how it was. And for that reason, I think he was totally good to go to make those moves to move up for Smack. Oddly enough, kicker. I'm not endorsing trading up for kickers today, but based on what this draft was, I think in both cases he made the right moves.
It's funny, in Goody's press conference, he jokes next year that he'll have 20 picks, and maybe he's right. Maybe there's a lot of players on this roster this year that aren't going to be on next year, and that's already forthcoming in his mind. So you get some of these core players that he drafted this year. You get some of these, these contract extensions for the guys that are core. And maybe a lot of these guys that we see on the team this year just won't be around. And then he'll reload with the 20 picks next draft and in free agency. So we might see a lot different team next year in 2027.
Which, again, they call the deepest draft in a decade coming out. So all these GMs are clearly salivating over it. And, Goody really, the bone collector collecting his picks, he's all about it. That's why he wasn't messing with that comp pick formula. He's just going to be adding to the pile as and where he can, Tay. No doubt about it. Let me ask you this, Tay. If there was one position that they didn't take a pick that you would have liked to see them take a pick, what position would that have been for you?
I think it's running back, honestly. Like I could have said tight end, but really, I mean, Kraft being injured.
Have you seen our boy Kraft?
Yeah.
He's yoked up, Tay.
But I'm just saying, like, given our history, we haven't really prioritized, even when healthy, utilizing our tight ends. I mean, Kraft was great. Tunyon, he was great for a little bit. But like over time, historically, it's like that's not our favorite position to like spend money on and to spend capital and
Did you see the run on those guys this year, Tay? When they started going, like I think round 2 to 3, the tight ends just went, and then they were gone.
Yeah,
it was over.
And like I like our tight end room, but it's it drops off pretty quick after Kraft, right? Miley, I mean, it does have potential. So that's just not there. And maybe that's there next year. But running back, if Jacobs gets hurt or anything like that, you're relying on right now, you're relying on Marshawn Lloyd. Who is that? And Chris Brooks, who is mostly just there for special teams. And
he's a blocking running back. They like his blocking ability. He's a decent change of pace back. He's a smaller, faster guy. But yeah, I mean, they have the big question mark in Lloyd, and they're really, that's a gamble. It is. And I'm 100% with you. That would also be my answer. 10 times out of 10, I would have liked a running back somewhere around 4 or 5. Would have been nice to see one. Maybe in round 3, I would have been okay with it. They didn't. There's still guys out there, like I want to say Austin Eckler's still out there, Kareem Hunt, some retreads, but maybe that something like that comes to pass, because I, like you, Tay, think they're really thin, and they're one injury away from really having nothing in Green Bay.
And they did sign someone, undrafted free agent. Let's get into that quick.
They did, yeah, and he's a smaller guy. He can kick return a little bit, Tay, but he's really nothing special. That'd be Isaiah Jacobs. No, that's Isaiah Jacobs is not the back I'm talking about. Isaiah Jacobs is Josh's brother. I want to say that they brought in for like he gets to come to like rookie minicamp workout. So he's not even an undrafted free agent, so to speak, the way I've heard it. So we're missing a running back on there. Not sure who that is, but obviously Josh Gesky was a high-rated prospect as far as an undrafted free agent. So is J. Michael Sturdivant. I think he was the highest undrafted free agent wide receiver in the class. You have R.J. Maryland there. That's actually a tight end. That's Russell Maryland's son. If we remember, Russell Maryland played O-line with the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s for all those years, Tay.
Yep.
And a good one. So there's a number of interesting things there, but the running backs that they've – what's that?
Jaden Nixon.
Okay. Yeah, so – He's out of like Central Florida, I want to say, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Jaden Nixon?
You see it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So again, he's a camp guy, maybe not even a practice squad kind of back. So they're really thin there. The Kyron Drones, interesting. He'll be a fun one to watch in camp, because he is that little bit of that, live body, live arm, Malik style quarterback that you can do a lot of fun things with. So
sure.
Definitely a fun one to watch there. And again, he was a top 30 visit. So will be interesting, some of these players. But yeah, I think the big ones that stood out in the class were obviously Drones, Sturdivant, Maryland, Josh Gesky. Those are the ones kind of this list that I've heard about that people will kind of keep an eye on. And, generally, one makes the Green Bay Packers roster every year.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. It's like these guys are camp bodies, but one always becomes camp darling, the training camp darling. And maybe we'll see that this year. I don't think we saw it last year, but at least ones that make the final 53. So we'll see if any of these guys do make it. If like, I'm ballparking it here, but I think we had 74 currently signed players, 6
plus 6
draft picks. I think
80,
10 here. So I think you're at 90.
Plus you don't have the other running back on there, 91.
I don't know about this Dylan Barrett, if he's actually on there or not. But regardless, it's right around 10. So you're right around 90 right now. And that's kind of it, isn't it?
Yep.
So
pretty close. It's 93, so
yeah,
we got a couple spots that can move and shake, and we'll see what happens.
Ren. So that's it.
Well, let me ask you one more thing, Tay.
Yeah.
0 technique, 1 technique, 3 technique. What does that mean?
Huh?
So Chris McClellan is going to line up at the 0. What is he doing, Tay?
Well, I don't know. He's going to stuff the run, Ren. He's probably right over the center.
That is directly over center. Ding, ding, ding. All right, Tay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, 1 technique.
And it's probably in the gap, right? In the gap.
Yeah. So it's, off to the shoulder of the center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still in the A gap. And then your 3 technique would be off the shoulder of the guard and more of that B gap.
Yeah. So I think it all depends on what play, they're running, or what do you think they're going to run? What that guy's doing and where they're doing it. Now you think, well, again, we haven't had the press conferences, so we don't know that we're changing to a 3-4, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing we haven't heard from our guy, our defensive coordinator that's been there for months, and he's going to pop his head out one of these days, Tay. Does he exist? Is Gannon a real guy? Not sure.
I don't know.
I heard he plays a 3-4, Tay.
And I remember Halfley coming in and being awesome, first of all, but at least now when we get to see him for the first time, Gannon will hopefully identify players and kind of put them in their spots a little bit. Like, hey, this guy's meant for this, and we hope this guy fits in here. I mean, they don't have to give away anything, but at least like I want some breadcrumbs or some teasers, like what he expects out of these people. So that might be interesting if they give that up.
Well, I think fans, number one, need to temper, trying to compare a Gannon presser with Halfley. Halfley is, one of the best soundbite, excitable guys we've had in years in Green Bay. I mean, you and I would rather listen to some Jeff Halfley talk football than Matt LaFleur, right? 10 times out of 10. So, yeah, it's Gannon, everybody needs to just let the man coach a defense and not worry about that kind of extracurricular stuff. But it's gonna definitely have a different flavor than Halfley. Just again, we love Jeff, and excitable, fun, just exuded excitement talking about defensive football.
I honestly, I think I told you this weekend that I thought we were going to get it today or yesterday, those press conferences. But
you told me 2 weeks ago we were going to get it before the draft. So your gut on that one, Tay, not so great.
Way off. So I don't understand this. But maybe they'll wait for the lull, wait for information lag to like spit it out. But let's go here. Let's get excited, because it's kind of like there's some question marks still out there that we need to figure out here. And now that the draft's done, let's do it.
Yeah, maybe next week we kind of take a peek at what our friends around the north, what they kind of added to their football team, kind of delve into a little bit of what their fans are thinking of their drafts. Just some quick overview. Obviously, we're not going to go through their entire drafts. Maybe our friend Joseph Christopoulos can join us here over the next few weeks as we get closer to that. And hey, man, it's not quite as fun as the draft, but almost as fun. That schedule release week, Tay, is just about 2 weeks away. So
yeah, wow, okay.
The where and when, we know the who, just not the where. Well, we know the who and where to a point, just not the when. So that part will be fun. Say when.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to look around the NFC North. That's a good idea. We should check it out. Like the Bears took another tight end high again, and
I saw that happen. I was like,
drafted Loveland last year really high.
They got Cole Kmet. Loveland looks like a stud in the making. Let's be honest,
you need another.
But Cole Kmet's there. You're like, I mean, how many tight ends you're playing Chicago? I mean, who knows?
And I think the Lions got a favorable, grayed out, but the Vikings, like, remember they like fired their GM in
They
January.
still don't have a GM to my knowledge.
An acting GM was making these picks, and there's some controversy. Maybe that they like blew one or two. So it's like, awesome for us, but bad for them.
Well, I don't think they're gonna. I think they're the bottom feeder in the division today, and it's gonna Bears, Packers, Lions. Oh my!
Yeah, love it. I love it. I'd rather have it this way than Vikings on top or vying for the.
Oh,
top.
the Bears fans though, Tay. They just
they're insufferable, but at least
I can't wait to hear how good their draft was.
And how much they own us now.
Oh yeah, they totally own us, Tay.
It's like, okay, what are you smoking? Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Somehow they forgot about 35 years of sheer dominance. Like, okay,
move the owners.
Go Bears.
All right, Ren, you got anything else tonight?
No, I think we're good, Tay.
All right,
we just hit the hour mark, man.
I know we did.
People need more of this.
Thanks everyone for showing up in the chat and watching live. Go follow us on socials. We're on every Wednesday night live on X, YouTube, and Twitch. And of course, the podcast version is out on anywhere you get podcasts. So thank you very much. Ren, thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, until episode, 350 something, Tay, on the pup list.